Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast on a Tuesday afternoon presented by Bet365. Download the Bet365 app and use code PHLY365 when you sign up, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. We got the man himself, Zack Berman, Bo Wulf. A little remote, a little throwback pod on a Tuesday. Eagles quiet right now, Zack. What's the deal? When are we going to get to see these players and coaches again?
Well, we'll see Nick Sirianni on the screen at 3:15. Nick Sirianni will have his first availability of the week, so we'll be able to get any updates then and hear his perspective. I don't know if we'll see the players until a little later in the week. Now, I know the players are in the facility today, perhaps not on the field. I know they had their logistics meeting today, going over the travel and everything that's happening in New Orleans for them. So there are meetings today. There's probably a lift. I think today is like what the Monday would be during the week. Yesterday was off. Today is a Monday. That means tomorrow would be potentially a day off for them, like their normal Tuesday. And then based on that, you'd be thinking Thursday, Friday, Saturday would be similar to a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday during game week.
Man,
we'll see.
Nobody think of the plight of the beat reporter.
The plight of the beat reporter, right?
Families.
Yeah.
They're gonna have Saturday access when they're having these people travel and be away from their families for 9-10 days. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. That's funny. I was talking about it, and then because we're going through the calendar.
Have Emily Berman and like Mrs. McManus throwing batteries at the Eagles bus as they head to the airport.
No, she's looking at the calendar. She's like, wait, what's this? Indianapolis? I was like, oh yeah, that's a week and a half later. Like literally the combine is a week and a half after we get home from the Super Bowl. Yeah, but this is fun. Eager to provide all the information. And I do want to say, this is Super Bowl season in Philly. This is what's on everyone's mind. But I did see in the chat a message about how great Fran's draft guide is. And we have to give that a shout out because it is awesome. I know we talked about it on yesterday's show. I'm being a company man. Keep plugging this. I will plug this every single day if I have to. Make sure you subscribe. You go to this often. And the great thing, too, is it's a living document. So we'll continue. I said we'll continue. Fran will continue to update this as this goes on. I don't want to take any credit for Fran's work here.
And of course, now is the time to become a diehard 36-hour deal. That those 36 hours are counting down. I believe 10 o'clock tonight is the deadline to get that fantastic deal. We saw somebody in the chat say this is their first episode as a paying diehard member. So we're happy to have that. And yes, this is a big opportunity for everybody to get in on the ground floor of the Fran Duffy rocket ship. And by the way, there's a new episode of the PHLY Draft Show with Fran Duffy that's up on our YouTube page now and in the audio feed, previewing the Senior Bowl and reviewing the Shrine Bowl. And there's an article on allphly.com with Fran's Shrine Bowl All-Stars. So all good stuff there. Today's episode, Zach, the conceit of the show, we're going to give Howie Roseman his flowers, and we're going to draft the moves that he has made that we think are most responsible for the Eagles being in the Super Bowl this year, but sort of differentiated from the 2022 roster. And so, drafting Jalen Hurts doesn't count for this. It's the moves that he made that set up them coming back to the Super Bowl 2 years later, but that it can still predate 2022 if that makes sense.
Yes, that's fair. I have a list of 10. Now I have 14. And my interpretation of it might be different than yours. All mine are moves since 2022.
Mine are not.
Okay, yeah. So then we'll have some good conversation about this. And I'll also say when I went back and look, it's very clear, and I've been saying this. Howie had an awesome offseason this past year. He deserves enormous credit. I had a tweet out and I have a story out later, kind of going through this calendar year or this past offseason. When I was going through the 2022 offseason, I realized that, and this is consistent with what Howie has said publicly in the past or in different conversations in the past, that when he has his best seasons, they have their best seasons, because there were decisions last year that were not especially fruitful. And look, you're not going to hit on all of them, but certainly what he's done since the end of last season has helped propel the Eagles to us sitting here on January 28th talking about Super Bowl as opposed to talking about the draft.
Now, Zach, knowing how you felt about the moves at the time, do you think the Eagles would be undefeated had they not signed DeVonta Parker?
No, I don't think that had any. I don't think that had any bearing on anything. As I said at the time, it was a low cost move.
I believe you said
think,
this makes the Eagles the joke of the NFL. They should fold the franchise. Yeah. Jeffrey Lurie sell the team.
Certainly did not say that. I think one that I will. I was looking back on what I said in 2022, and I thought then that they would regret letting CJ Gardner-Johnson leave. That was one that I looked at after, or I should say 2023, after the 2022 season, that I think the way they handled their D-backs in 2023 was not. Now, I think some of it was out of their hands. I think their plan was to keep CJ Gardner-Johnson, and then he wanted more. That's been well documented. But yeah, the one I look at where I was probably most critical of that I felt like had the biggest implications was letting CJ Gardner-Johnson go. And I feel strongly they shouldn't have done that. They rectified it.
Well, I mean, it worked out. They got him for the right price anyway, right?
That's true. That's a good point. Although that season did happen last year. So, yeah.
All right. Before we get into that, Zach, we do have to do the locker room report presented by our friends at Valley Forge. Winter weekend getaways and family-friendly affordability await in Montgomery County. Get started planning that next getaway today at valleyforge.org. Make it family time and make it Montco. Now, we have not been in the locker room, Zach, but I do want to hear from you since we talked about it on yesterday's show. Are you hearing anything about Brandon Graham? Yeah,
I heard Brandon Graham speak about it last night. And Brandon Graham was on his radio show on 94 WIP, and he said it's day by day at this point, or he's taking it a day at a time. First, he said he's taking a game at a time. There's only one game left. He said he's taking it a day at a time. If I could be a Brandon Graham interpreter here, I think that the Eagles said to Brandon Graham before he went on the show, "Don't say you're playing. Don't say you're playing."
Brandon, you already ruined everything once before on this show this season. Please don't do it again.
Yes, that was because Brandon, he's such like a nice guy, and he wants to be like a truth teller. It was like he was reading from a script. We're just taking it day by day, man. He's like, but I'm feeling, and then there's a follow-up question from Elliot Shore-Parks about how he's feeling. And look, the doctor from Rothman yesterday was spot on talking about the recovery from the injury and like keeping that strong. But he said this has been the best recovery of any injury he's had, or any of these big injuries. He said because it's upper body, and sorry, my voice cracked there. He said because it's upper body, and he's like, when it's the lower body injuries, it affects so much of your life. But the upper body one, he's been able to handle it. It's just a matter of keeping those muscles strong. I've been hearing for a month from different places, like, yeah, don't roll this out. Don't roll this out. Like, every time I wanted to see if someone would talk me off a ledge, no one would talk me off a ledge. It was more like, we'll see. And sometimes you hear like, oh, I wouldn't put that out there. That's not happening. But it was always when I asked, hey, yeah, we'll see what happens. I think two different people said it at one point. We have to get there first, right? And so it was always like, well, we have to get there first. Well,
it's within the realm of possibilities, but there are a lot of checkpoints to happen before they even get to him practicing.
Yeah, I'm expecting Brandon Graham to play. That's just me. That's not based on someone saying he's going to play, but I'm expecting Brandon Graham to play. Yeah,
it'd be so cool.
And I'm getting the growing sense that this isn't his last game either.
Really?
But this is the thing: if they win, like, look, by no means, if you can play football, play for as long as you can.
Right.
But there is a part of you that says like, leave well enough alone. Like, if you come back from an injury to play in the Super Bowl and you win the Super Bowl, that's a pretty good way to.
With Brady there again.
Story. Yeah, that's a pretty good way to end the story. But we'll see.
What an unbelievable thing. I mean, and it goes beyond the sentimentality of it, as we talked about, I mean, he was arguably the best player on the defense the first half of the season. Zack Baun and Jalen Carter included as well, and Quinyon Mitchell. But he was playing at such a high, like the game he went out, that Rams game, he was dominating that game.
Yeah, you're right. Now, and in the Shio Kapadia good problem to have department, Nolan Smith has turned it on since then, has really turned into a productive player. But look, they need, or they could use edge rushing depth. I understand there's only one game left. The 3-man rotations worked fine for them. They won't be worse off having Brandon Graham on the roster for this game.
All right, well said. There you have it. The Locker Room Report presented by our friends at Valley Forge. All right, Zach, let's get to this Howie Roseman draft. Howie loves a draft. Let's give him a draft as a present, as a way to give him his flowers. You want to do a little rock, paper, scissors to decide who goes first here?
Sure.
Okay, 2 out of 3?
2 out of 3.
Ready?
Yep.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. You got to put it in the camera, Zach. You're not. What is that?
Sorry, it was.
You gotta be careful with that.
How do I?
Don't be lifting that. Don't be lifting that too high.
You don't have to warn me of that. Trust me.
1-0 for me.
Yeah. Wait. So that was paper. Okay.
Yeah. So my scissors beat your paper.
Yes.
Ready.
Yeah.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Paper.
Zach, look! What are you doing? You have to put it in front of the camera. We both went paper.
Yes.
Ready. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. All right, 1-1.
Gotcha. Yep.
Ready.
Yep.
Rock, paper, scissors. Why is this timing so bad? Shoot. Okay, we're still tied. Couple rocks. Yeah.
I'm gonna put it above the screen. Okay.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You got to put it where everybody can see.
This is at eye level for me. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, all right.
Julia says this is the rest of the show.
All right. The audio listeners must love this right now too.
You ready?
Yep.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
You got me. Okay.
Did you go paper every single time?
I went rock the time we went tied, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Wow.
All right, you got me.
All right, that'll do it for this episode of the All right, I'm going to go first.
Yep.
I've talked about this before. And this is the one that, I have a couple that predate 2022, but this is the one. And it's a little bit cheating because it's two things in one, but you can't separate the two because of what it allowed them to do. To me, this goes back, the biggest reason the Eagles are in the Super Bowl is what Howie Roseman did in the 2021 offseason, acquiring first-round draft capital. And so that is the Carson Wentz trade to the Colts, which eventually netted them a first-round pick in 2022, and trading down from 6 to 12 with the Miami Dolphins, which netted them a first-round pick in 2022. So it allowed them in 2022 to have 3 first-round picks, one of which he used to acquire A.J. Brown, and the other he used to get a first-round pick the following year, which led to Jalen Carter. And the reason that to me this is what it's all about is, we talk about Howie Roseman. His moves are not perfect, right? He's within the realm of reasonable expectations for hit rates, right? And so the first-round picks that the Eagles have had over the past 4 years are pretty good. The ones that they have had for what they deserved in their draft spot, right? So Jordan Davis, okay, pretty good. DeVonta Smith, very good. Nolan Smith at 30 or 31 or whatever it was, very good pick at that spot. But this roster would not be in the shape that it is if they had just stuck to what their draft slots were. And the reason that even you could do a thing like Saquon Barkley, which we will get to, is because they had like 2 superstar tent poles on the roster in A.J. Brown and Jalen Carter. Now, A.J. Brown was on the 2022 team, so it's a little bit not perfect for this exercise. But Jalen Carter is a player who the Eagles did not deserve to have, right, based on them coming off the Super Bowl. And it was all set up by those moves in 2021. And what I think Howie Roseman is better at than the rest of the league is being able to work on multiple timelines. He will tell you that he's always trying to win the Super Bowl every year. There is no such thing as a rebuilding year in his mind, but he is also able to see the bigger picture. And if you are just thinking about the hit rates and the expected outcomes for what different resources are worth, he is more willing than others to sacrifice to get the really prime time resources. And to me, that is the reason that the Eagles are in the Super Bowl most of all.
Well said. Now, 2 follow-ups there. First off, tanking that Washington game proved to be so beneficial for the future of the organization, right? And you think about teams like Las Vegas this year that won that final game. It was a lot of outrage then, but think about where they are right now.
And even if you think back to that 2022 draft, right, when they had the 3 first-round picks. Listen, like I think draft picks are extremely valuable, and I don't always love when it's you compare like what you would get for a player for a first-round pick. But if you had, let's say, like the very best case scenario outcome for if they had kept those 3 picks, let's say based on the range of guys they took guys in, like let's say you got Kyle Hamilton, Trent McDuffie, and Tyler Smith, right? That would be a home run. You would think about throwing a parade for those picks, and that's still not Jalen Carter and AJ Brown, right? Sure. Like, so I don't know.
So my second follow up to that is, which trade did you like better, the Miami trade or the New Orleans trade? Because there were different types of trades, and to me, the New Orleans trade's the one I like better.
I don't know that I would even. I would say that one was better than the other. They both made a lot of sense.
Well,
the New Orleans one was more obvious to do because they already had 3 drafts. Sure. Like they had 3 first-round picks. I think the Miami one was interesting in that they did it so early, without knowing necessarily who might be on the board at 6.
And you're trading out of the top 10, which is
you're trading out of the range of Penei Sewell and Jamar Chase, right?
Sure.
However, it made sense. Then they were able to move up for DeVonta Smith. But you talk about like not wanting to rebuild. To me, that was they entered 2021 with the expectation that it might be at least a 1-year turnaround. It's part of the reason that they moved on from Doug Peterson, right? And so I think if you offer Howie Roseman like obvious value that is not taking into account the year, like that you're not discounting future years, he's going to take it.
Yeah, I think it's clear when you look at where the Saints organization is right now and where the Eagles organization is right now, the benefit of, as you framed it, it's a good expression for operating under multiple timelines, right? Like understanding that there's a world that exists beyond this season is a valuable way for a general manager to think. Now, there's some people who say that Howie has the benefit of thinking that way, and I've always framed it. And I wrote this in stories. I wrote this in a book. Is that
what book?
There's a commenter who says I plugged the book too much, so I'm trying to be careful. But
okay.
The franchise.
Why don't you plug that book right up that commenter's behind?
Yeah, a curated history of the Birds, which by the way is especially relevant during the next 2 weeks because there's a lot in there on Andy Reid and Jeffrey Lurie's ownership and some of what Jeffrey might regret that I think people would find interesting. But as I've written in there, and I feel strongly about this, is that Howie doesn't act that way because Howie's not aggressive because he has job security. He has job security because he's aggressive, and that's the framing that I think is important. And Jeffrey has specifically said that if Howie operated differently, he would not be the GM, right? Like if Howie only thought about maximizing this year, I don't think Jeffrey would be as interested in Howie as GM. Jeffrey likes the strategic way Howie approaches the roster. Do you want me to get into mine here, or should we do an ad break?
Why don't you do your first round pick, and then we'll do the ads after that.
And I should just specify: is Jalen Carter still available, or was that encompassed in the trade?
I think I'm sort of looping him in, but I don't know if that's fair. Yeah.
No, that's fine. Clearly, drafting Jalen Carter in the first round was a great move by them. You might say it was obvious. 8 teams did not think it was obvious, or eight teams had their reasons not to do it. Well, I should say 9 teams, because the the Chicago Bears traded out of it, right?
Yes.
The Chicago Bears were sitting there, and I understand infrastructure is important, but there's sometimes when you just bet on talent. And
do you know who that pick turned out to be, Zach?
Darnell, who? What? I know the Bears.
So the
took
Eagles,
Darnell,
the Eagles
right?
trade up. The Eagles trade up from 10 to 9 for one spot. The Bears take Darnold, right? But the compensation for that one spot move up was a 2024 fourth round pick. So it was they moved up one spot and traded a future fourth.
A 2024 fourth. I'm sorry, 2024 fourth round pick. So someone on the Bears this year, or did they trade that pick?
The Bears kept it.
The Bears kept it. So was it Taylor Bortolini?
No.
Okay. I don't know if it's in. Who was it?
Torrey Taylor, the punter.
Torrey Taylor, the ball. Okay.
So the Eagles drafted a punter in the future to get Jalen Carter.
Yeah. The Bears were so excited because they're like, they just got this free pick, but I don't understand why they didn't just take the bet. Now I've heard they didn't think they had the infrastructure in place for Jalen Carter. I don't know. Gamble on talent, right?
Scared money don't make money. And I also I believe that maybe a little too much is made of the Georgia surrounding Jalen Carter being a necessity. Like I believe that the Eagles did think that they were as well suited as anybody to get the most out of Jalen Carter. But I'm sorry, I don't think that if Jalen Carter was with the Bears that he wouldn't already be one of the best players in football. Like,
yeah,
I don't know.
Good point. I agree. Yeah, I think he was going to be good wherever he went.
Yeah, honestly.
So I'll just put mine in here. I'll give it, and we can continue the conversation after the ad break if we want. But obviously, signing Saquon Barkley is just an enormous return on investment as it is. The aggressiveness in going out and getting a player, I don't want to say thinking unconventionally, because you're signing Saquon Barkley, but there's a thought: are they spending too much on a running back? It's against the way they have operated. Is a player with that type of workload worth doing that type of deal on? And look, I know there's things out there saying he's the best free agent signing in NFL history. Drew Brees was really good. Reggie White was really good, right? But I mean, Saquon Barkley is certainly high on that list. I mean, to sign an MVP candidate is enormously. You certainly don't see that very often. Number one, and then number two, he's just been such an outstanding fit in the locker room. One of the things I was asking him questions about this throughout the offseason, about how you go from being like the face of a franchise somewhere else to trying to fit in somewhere else, to trying to be one of the guys. Like we've used like the mercenary conversation when it comes with the Cowboys guy signing here, but like Saquon wasn't just. It's not just Hassan Reddick signing with the Eagles, right? It's not Bryce Huff signing with the Eagles. He was the franchise player with the Giants. He was the guy who said he wanted to be a Giant for life and all of this. And then he goes and he signs with a place that has this established culture already. He doesn't have the C on his chest when he comes here, like little things like that. And everything you hear behind the scenes is how well he fits in, how much he has bought into being a teammate here. And I'm not giving you those anecdotes about him golfing with, Kenny Pickett this offseason. There is, I do hear.
Wasn't it Will Greer?
And Kenny, yeah, exactly. And I've heard Lane Johnson say golf was a way that he really immersed himself with the team. But just with the relationships he's built with the offensive line, with the other start players, the way he's been in that room. You talk to guys like Will Shipley about that. He's been, you knew he was a good player, but I think that he's been off the charts as a character addition to that locker room and that team as well. And the one thing you always hear with free agent signings is you don't know how a guy's going to fit, right? You always hear you'd rather pay on someone that you've lived with rather than the arranged marriage. And there's been absolutely no issue with that. It has literally been the opposite of signing DeMarco Murray, which was the best comparison. They were signing a guy in the division who was a rushing leader in the NFL. And you couldn't have had a worse locker room fit. And this has been seamless.
All right. On the other side of this break, Zach, I will tell you why I would not have taken Saquon with the next pick, and why I also think that it's not necessarily as counter to Howie Roseman's MO as some people might think.
Oh, that's a Colin Cowherd tease. I like it.
I don't know if I take that as a compliment, but anyway, let's talk about our friends at Ace Hardware Home Services. At Ace Hardware Home Services, whenever they get ready for the next job, they remember what to bring. And that is threefold. Are you ready?
Yes.
Number one, they bring experience. Local plumbers and techs who handle everything from repairs and seasonal maintenance to installations and upgrades. No first-timers on the job here. You're getting people who know their way around a little bit of home service. Number two, they bring understanding. They listen to your goals, and the job is not completed until you are satisfied. We're talking active listeners who are not scrolling Twitter while their co-hosts are talking. And then number three, they bring
Twitter. Look at
I wasn't talking about who's to say I was talking about you. Number three, they bring helpful to your home, so you can spend more of your time on the projects that really matter. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project.
I want to tell everyone about Ice Shaker. I remember back in 2017 when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, I'm watching Shark Tank, and I see this product and the Gronkowski brothers run across the screen, and I'm like, ooh, what is this? And the answer is it's Ice Shaker. And if you're wondering what Ice Shaker is, let me tell you, it's the perfect gift for passionate sports fans in your life. You might have heard of it. You might not have. Ice Shaker is officially licensed with the NFL, NHL, NBA, NCAA, and MLB, and will make the ideal gift. It's created and used by the Gronkowski brothers, so you know it's good. Ice Shaker has sold over 1 million bottles. They have changed the game with workout bottles, and they have a bottle that you've been looking for. Go to iceshaker.com and use the code AllCity25 at checkout to save 25% on your order. It has kitchen-grade stainless steel that won't absorb odor like the plastic bottles do. They have a patented twist in the agitator that breaks up powders, but it's silent when you shake it instead of that annoying ball. It's third-party tested. It's going to hold ice for over 30 hours, and it's customizable. Send us your logo or check the custom shop to customize your favorite bottle. Turnaround time on this is 3 to 5 business days. And the agitator works as a strainer as well. So it makes a very solid tailgating cup for your mixed drinks. Order your team-branded bottles today at iceshaker.com and use the code AllCity25 for 25% off your order. Ice Shaker, show your support for your teams with the best branded workout bottles on the market. Ice Shakers.
Quick look at the super chats that we have before we continue this draft. We have a comment from, as I pull it up here, Rob Milner, who says the Eagles have answered many offseason questions, but Jalen's ability, to take over at the line of scrimmage from Jason Kelce cannot be understated. I think that's fair. It was a huge talking point in the summer. There were a couple times this season where it flared up a little bit, and we talked about it with Fran. But I think there's no doubt that that Jalen has done well in that capacity. Adam P. says, love and respect Howie, but at what point do we give Big Dom some credit for the way the Eagles are run? He seems to do a lot behind the scenes. Zach, I'll let you take this one.
Yeah, Dom DeSandro is extraordinarily valuable in his role, not just as director of team security, or I should say vice president of team security, but he has a wonderful sense of, or I should say wonderful sense of people. He has a good sense of people from what I understand. He can, get to the heart of a matter when figuring out if they should bring a player in, if they shouldn't. He's a sounding board for a lot of players. When people think of VP of team security or team security guy, you think of like the fixer, so to speak, and he does more than that. There's a lot that he does in terms of like dealing with players who have different issues behind the scenes, personal issues. He's someone who they trust. He's a valuable sounding board. he's respected as all could be in that building. But I will also say, and like uh, I think Dom DeSandro probably gets an appropriate amount of credit, right? Like I've said this in the sense that the biggest change I've seen in my time covering the team has been Dom's stardom. Like from the time I joined the beat, when it was like, who is that guy? And now players wear shirts. He's on TV. There was a Sixers game last year where like they introduced Dom as the celebrity, right? It used to be that Dom was sitting next or sitting behind the guy they were introducing. I can't tell you when I was at the Inquirer how many messages I would get from readers asking like, who's that guy walking with Andy? Who's that guy walking with Chip? And Jeff McClain did an outstanding story on Dom. Certainly the 49ers game last year brought a big spotlight onto him. He's come up in a lot of reports. I had a story last week about Darius Slay, where Slay said he came back at Dom's urging when Corey Clement was. I talked about how Dom vowed for Corey Clement in the draft room. He's someone he knew Corey. Dom knows everybody. If there's any like former player or anyone in the city who needs something, it's just call Dom. Call Dom. He is like he's the ultimate I got a guy. He's like everybody's guy. And he's one of those people who like everyone's best friends with Dom. And it's a credit to Dom. But I think that's become like he's become a almost like an icon in Philly during the past few years.
Yeah, actually, I don't know that even I would say that he gets the right amount of credit, because I think there are a lot of things that he does that we don't know about, and I'm beyond the security, stuff, just in terms of like managing the locker room, and like anything that's going on there, or whether that's tension between players or tensions between players and the coaching staff or the front office. Like, I think Dom is a huge part of that. And as you wrote about in the Darius Slay story, Zach, like he's making transactions happen.
Yeah, because he's the guy people trust, right? And that's so important, because look, in any business, and whether it's professional football, media, people watching, there can always be like a certain amount of distrust or like tension between labor and management, right? That's like an age old thing, and it in any business, and Dom is somebody who seems to transcend that in that he works for Jeffrey and Howie, or he works for Jeffrey, right? Works with Howie, but he's the player's guy too. And I think that is so important. Is that I think in that locker room, he's not viewed as like he's here for Jeffrey, he's here for Howie, he's here for Nick. Like Dom's their guy, and that is I can't overstate how important that is.
All right, my next pick, which I would have had one spot ahead of Saquon for the Eagles being where they are now, is Howie's ability to deliver Vic Fangio as the Eagles defensive coordinator. And I think this is multifold, because it's not just you're getting Vic Fangio to run the defense. You're also putting in the infrastructure and the eyes to get a guy like Zack Baun in the right spot and get the most out of him, to get the most out of Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. A bunch of guys who I'm sure we're going to talk about. I think Vic Fangio deserves a lot of credit for putting them in the right spot, and also just improving the defense. I mean the rise from 29th to 1st is unprecedented and insane. And this is absolutely a Howie making, right? And he's just like he's rectifying the CJ Gardner-Johnson signing. He's rectifying not getting Fangio the offseason prior. And I'll tell you why I give Howie a special credit for special credit for this, as opposed to Saquon when it comes to going against type for him. Because with Saquon, yes, they had not paid a running back, but we know that they have gone after stars many times before, right? Saquon was in their mind a star, and the roster was in such a position that they needed to find an extra edge rusher. They did that. They got their Bryce Huff. But if you want a star, there weren't a lot of other places to look. And that goes back to the same conversation from before about A.J. Brown and Jalen Carter. Like, without those moves, you don't sign Saquon Barkley because you're going to have some need elsewhere. And so, yes, like, they hadn't paid a running back in free agency a ton, but they've flirted with stars before. This was not completely unprecedented. What is completely unprecedented in terms of, like, the way that Howie Roseman wants a team built is the thing that we talked to him about in the summer, about, like, the defensive line rotation, and Howie Roseman being willing to hand over the reins to Vic Fangio on that front, being like, listen, this is the way that I have done it forever, and I'm willing to take a back seat because this is how Vic Fangio wants to do it. And now all of a sudden you got Jalen Carter playing, like, every snap in the second half of the season. It's insane, and it's paying off in an incredible way. And so I'm giving Howie extra credit for not only delivering Fangio, but getting out of the way and letting Fangio do what he wants to do and run the defense the way that he runs it.
Yeah, that's a great point. And look, they've clearly been enamored with the Fangio scheme, right? That was part of the draw of Gannon, even though Gannon did not work directly for Vic. And there was the obviously bringing in Sean Desai, like Howie was interested in this. So the way they're using the players and even the construction of the roster to an extent is different, but the scheme itself is one they've been enamored with. But to your point, and I've stolen your line throughout the year that that Vic was going to raise the floor. Certainly, but we didn't know what he would do for the ceiling. But I'm saying, like, the ceiling, I don't know if I don't know if internally they ever envisioned the number one defense in the NFL. And I've said this, Dom is the star of that. Oh, I'm sorry, not Dom. Vic is the star of that defense. Like, Vic is, Jalen Carter's outstanding. Zack Baun is the defensive player of the year candidate. But if you said to me, what's the one reason why they have the number one defense in the NFL? I'd probably say Vic Fangio. Yeah. I
totally agree.
But I don't mean to be like
let's hear it.
Like, by use, because in your answer you're like, it's also part of, like, why Zack Baun is flourished by Quinyon.
Well, yeah.
Like, you get no,
I don't know. We will draft those things.
I was like, is this the challenge? Is this like Howie's trades?
No, this is different. Okay. This is just, okay. But like, I don't think that Zack Baun, the signing of Zack Baun, is as much of a home run if they have any other defensive coordinator in football. Yeah.
And that's a good point, because so for mine, I was debating here between Baun and the player I'll give this player, because with Baun, I need to dock them some points because this wasn't the intention, right? Yeah. And we'll get to that. Like, it worked out great. You give them, they made the signing, but the intention wasn't for Zack Baun to become the best linebacker in football, or one of the best linebackers in football. But I'll do this. Quinyon Mitchell in the first round, I need to give them credit for, because first off, it wasn't an obvious pick, in that when the first cornerback is coming off the board at 21, in the 20s, 22, you're not by definition, like, you think he's the best corner in the draft, but it's not unanimous that he's the best cornerback in the draft. When the first cornerback comes off at that point in the draft, it's clear that the league doesn't value this cornerback draft class the way they have historically. In the past, top corners have gone in the top 10, right? So he was probably not viewed at the level of, Surtain and J.C. Horn and Stingley and Sauce Gardner. And you go on down the list of all these guys who've been taken in the top half. He's been outstanding, and he's been better than I expected. I understood why they took Mitchell. I liked Terrion Arnold in the draft because of the pedigree, the different styles of play, the age profile. But Quinyon's been a bona fide number one cornerback for them. To get that when they did in the draft, when you add in the fact too that this is a position they haven't been able to draft well, or they haven't been able to draft well overall with it. And it changes your future outlook that you have a guy like Quinyon Mitchell. So he's been great this year. And you look at this defense going forward and the way you can allocate resources. I talked about this. If you're not paying your top corner $20 million, what does that do for the rest of your cap allocation? And I mean, barring injury, he's going to get better. He's another guy who he's wired the right way. So, yeah, I give them so much credit.
I actually had Quinyon next as well. I was going to frame it a little bit differently in that, to me, it was the patience to sit there and let Quinyon Mitchell come to them, because we talked about after the draft, we thought that this was the best that Howie had ever maneuvered the board in his draft history. And usually he wants to go up in that first round. And by waiting and letting Quinyon come to him, that then set up them being able to move up for Cooper DeJean in the second round. Then you move down in the third round. You pick up the future third. You get Jalix Hunt, and I'm sure those guys will come up as well. But to me, it all started with night one, the patience there, which was a little bit atypical, and then obviously nailing the selection.
Yeah, I mean, the scouting report. I mean, credit to the scouts too, right? When you're drafting someone from Toledo, you need to have good intel. And look, Nick Sirianni's college roommate was Jason Candle, so that certainly helps. But you're not just taking the head coach's endorsement too. Like, you have people on the ground. You're meeting with them at the Senior Bowl, at the Combine, and they knock that out of the park. But yeah, I thought they were going to draft an offensive lineman. Howie in the past has, like you said, he's wanted to trade up to have that certainty. Like, all right, this is the guy we like. Let's say the guy's Troy Faltanu, or let's say the guy's Amarius Mims, or you pick. It's like, we're going to ensure we get him, and they were able to do that in the second round this year, like you said, but they didn't have to do that in the first round because of the way Howie navigated the board.
All right, let's take another break, and then on the other side, I will tell you why I believe the next most important move Howie Roseman made this offseason was not a player acquisition. We start with Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. Now, I don't know if you're this bold, but the last 2 years ago, we were in Arizona. We talked to a few sickos. They went there. They didn't have a ticket. No ticket to the game. They were willing to play the waiting game, knowing that tickets would go down the closer it went to kickoff. I can't personally recommend that. I'm not going to tell you to do that. But if you are so wired, I do believe that Game Time would be the best place to go to make that happen for yourself, because Game Time has the features that you need. They've got all-in pricing, so you're not going to be surprised by hidden fees at the very end. You're going to get the seat views, so you know exactly what it's going to look like when you're in the building. You're going to get the lowest price guarantee, where Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference if you find the same seats for less money elsewhere. And you get Game Time ticket coverage, where your tickets are guaranteed to be delivered on time and your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem with code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time.
We're all heading down to New Orleans next week. It's going to be sunny down there. And so you know that unlike Las Vegas last year when we were indoors all the time, we're going to be outside more this year. Bo might need his Shady Rays. I might need my Shady Rays. Joya might need her Shady Rays. So we should make sure we have our Shady Rays, and you should make sure, whether you're going to New Orleans or the summer's approaching, you have your Shady Rays. Our friends at Shady Rays are helping you get in the right frame of mind with their premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglass company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their sunglasses have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. If you're a skier or snowboarder, Shady Rays has a brand new collection of snow goggles to help you see clearly and look good on the slopes. They're available in both kids and adult sizes. And with so many colors, you'll be able to find the pair that's perfect for you. Plus, if your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by their loss replacement program. And if you don't love your shades, exchange them for a new pair or return them worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. The team always has your back with personal and fast support. PHLY viewers and listeners, go to shadyrays.com and save 35% off polarized shades with code PHLY. Over 300,000 people have rated Shady Rays 5 stars, so use the code PHLY today at shadyrays.com.
And we go from that to our Ace Hardware temperature check. I'm going to tell you who is heating up with our Ace Hardware temperature check. Visit Ace Hardware Home Services online at www.acehardwarehomeservices.com to get started on your next project. And Zach, with my next selection for the move or moves that Howie Roseman made to best set the Eagles up for a return to the Super Bowl 2 years after going in 2022, I am going with the double barrel wide receiver extensions this offseason.
That's on my list.
So signing DeVonta Smith and A.J. Brown, paying them up front. And to me, this set the stage for the offense to be able to become a run-first Saquon Barkley offense without there being locker room acrimony. And I think A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith obviously would both like the ball as much as possible, but part of the reason for that is to then get rewarded. And if you reward them on the front end, at least the first year, I think there is a little bit less of an impetus on them to need the ball right away.
You're correct. This had ramifications or I guess benefits in that regard, and they were able to play this way. They were able to keep those guys happy. Or have those guys happy. Those guys weren't playing for contracts. And then the other side of it too, the Eagles got ahead of it. Like you saw you knew you had to pay DeVonta Smith. You knew you had to re-sign A.J. Brown at some point. They could have waited. They could have done what Dallas did and waited. They could be in Cincinnati's spot here where T. Higgins is going to get, he's already been tagged. He's going to hit the market again, or they're going to have to pay him a lot more. Jamar Chase is going to break the bank. Like, these are guys the Eagles knew they needed to keep, and by acting quickly, they were able to get them on deals that the players were happy with, and then those deals were quickly. It's the first mover advantage, and they've done this time and time again. And I don't understand why more teams don't act this way.
There you go. All right, that'll do it for the Ace Hardware temperature check. DeVonta Smith and A.J. Brown getting that money and keeping the temperatures nice and cool in the Eagles locker room.
You know what? To move this conversation along, I'm not going to go with the Cooper DeJean pick. I kind of we put that into the other one. I've already started talking about it, so I'll go with the Cooper DeJean pick here. Okay.
Interesting. DeJean over Baun.
No. You know what? Oh, actually, I got to go with Baun. Sorry, because I went out of order. I thought I have Baun higher. I'm going to go Zack Baun. And Zack Baun's being docked a bit here because it's him. It was him and Quinyon Mitchell. I went Quinyon because the intention was for Quinyon to be great. The intention wasn't for Zack Baun to be great, but the result has been for Zack Baun to be great. And, if you think back to, Vic Fangio, we're giving him credit again. The first Vic Fangio press conference, I asked somebody thought of linebacker, and I thought he misspoke when the first name he mentioned was Zack Baun. I was like, I thought it was like when I asked Doug Peterson about the guard situation one year, in 2016. And he's like, well, we have Jason Peters and Jason Kelsey. And I'm like, what? He was just naming offensive linemen because Vic Fangio meant it when he said Zack Baun. We just didn't know at the time. And he said Zack Baun ahead of Devin White. And when they signed Devin White, I thought Devin White was going to be the top linebacker this year with Nakobe Dean. And Zack Baun's been that, really going back to the first minicamp practice we saw. It was Zack Baun, and it's been pole to pole in that regard. So Baun,
one of the most unlikely seasons that I can't imagine I will ever see a more unlikely season.
Yeah, defensive player of the year candidate, the best Eagles linebacker in terms of the way he's played that I have seen in my time covering the team. So that's 13 years. He's just been at a different level. He's versatile. He's tough. He's athletic. He's smart. And the way he has a nose for the ball, they can use him in so many different ways that it allows Vic Fangio to be more creative. Yeah, I mean, he's been awesome. And we all know the story by now. The Eagles signed him to be a backup edge rusher, special teams guy. Vic Fangio saw the tape and said he's an inside backer. Bobby King had scouted him out of college as an inside backer. And he's like a transcendent inside backer in terms of the way he plays.
Amen. All right, I'm going with another non-transaction for Howie Roseman here, and that is going all the way back to that famous snowstorm of 2024, early in the year, and that is Howie Roseman reportedly being the one to, as Zach would say, pound the table for Jeffrey Lurie to keep Nick Sirianni, knowing that they have a good working relationship. And it's the Nick conversation that we had a little bit yesterday about how he's the right coach for this specific team. If you have, the league's most talented roster, you need a guy who's going to get the most out of those guys. Make sure that they're always ready to play. It wasn't always perfect, but it has been. And I think Howie. It's not that Howie gets credit for Nick, but I think Howie was preaching patience on that front, and I'm going to give him some credit there.
Yeah, and look, Howie and Jeffrey it's ultimately Jeffrey's decision, but yeah, I mean, I do think Howie had Nick's back, number one, and number two, I've compared the Eagles to more of a baseball structure than a traditional football structure, in that the GM, president of baseball operations or football operations, however you want to frame it, like he has more, he has the juice in the organization. Right. And what you look for in the manager in baseball is how does he manage the clubhouse? Right. Like that's such an important thing, because a lot of the approach for managing the game is managed top down. Right. And not to say that Nick isn't. Nick's making the in-game decisions, but like whether it's the coaching staff, whether it's the approach, there's a lot of voices involved. And I think part of being the Eagles coach is accepting that your coaching staff, there's going to be contributions from above you in terms of putting that together, and that the way you have to operate from a game management perspective, there's at least going to be input there, right? But the most important thing is, how does the coach set the culture, and and you hear it in baseball, is how does the manager set the culture of the clubhouse? And so it's kind of been consistent with that, and the GM and the coach need to have alignment. That's a popular term this time of year. I actually think I'll give credit to Jake Rosenberg, who used to work in the Eagles front office. He had a good tweet that said, like, there's too much attention paid to the relationship between the GM, that these people have to have pre-existing relationships. He's like, you can build that relationship. It's the alignment that matters more. You're like philosophically aligned rather than just hiring someone that and
or have the same agent as.
Yeah, exactly. As Kalen Kaler had an outstanding story in terms of the package deal from Kalen from ESPN, I should say. So yeah, I think the alignment between the two of them has been spot on this year.
Do you think it's hard to, like, from a salary cap standpoint, like that's a big part of it, right? The way that the Eagles do their salary cap to be able to make moves like the Saquon Barkley thing, but it's not new. And so that's why I have not included that here, because this is how they've been running things for a very long time.
Yeah, no, that's not new. It's just more pronounced when you view it in comparison to the rest of the league. Yeah.
All right, what's your next pick?
So I'm gonna go CJ Gardner-Johnson here. Okay. I'm being more literal with mine.
You were gonna go DeJean, and now you're going over DeJean again.
Yeah, because I don't think you're going to go DeJean the next pick, so I'll circle back to my DeJean point. But if not, I will buttress it with some other supporting points there. But CJ Gardner-Johnson, you rectified an error. I'm not saying CJ is like the best safety in the league, but there's a difference with CJ on the field. You saw it when he was ejected in that Washington game. He does bring the ball hawking ability. He brings versatility. He hasn't been a flawless player this year. Like there have been errors, but I do think he's He's someone who has a respected voice in that locker room. He's someone who brings a style of play and just relative security. And I know he's missed some plays early on this year, but they're better when they have CJ Gardner-Johnson on the field. Safety was an issue for them last year. He's been a major upgrade. And then the other thing I'll point out too is I saw this clip on social media. I don't know if it was a fan clip, but CJ and Nick Sirianni embracing, and like CJ looked, I don't know if he was in tears. I don't know if you saw this clip. Like they were hugging. Yeah, and it was sweet. You know, CJ I've retweeted it. But like you see how much he cares, like how much this matters to CJ, and that's apparent in conversations in that building that I've had, like about when I ask people about CJ, like how much he loves like playing football.
How much of this the signing of this success to you is about the on-field play, and how much is like the juice that he brings, and them talking about they were missing some toughness at the end of last season?
I don't think you can separate the two, but I think you first have to look at the on-field play, because safety was a major problem last year, and I didn't quite know how they were going to address it. And I mean, in my offseason guide, if I were Howie Roseman, I said if they can get CJ Gardner-Johnson, they should do it. I mentioned like Jordan Fuller as like safeties out there that I liked, and I was like, if
Jeremy Chin, your boy.
Yeah, but I actually didn't like Jeremy Chin in the way they were going to play safety, right? When they hired Fangio, I was like, this probably doesn't work as well. I'd like Chin more as a player than as a fit in the Eagles. I didn't know if they could let bygones be bygones, right? And I said if you can get past that, CJ makes a lot of sense in this scheme, and he's been so the on-field part of it has been huge. I think the toughness in the swagger is beneficial. But I think the upgrade that he's been at safety compared to what they had last year has been the biggest difference.
All right, I will. I could go DeJean here, but I'll let you do DeJean. I'm gonna go back to 2022. And by the way, let me thank everybody for watching on Fast, and let you know that you can check out the rest of this episode on allphly.com. I'm going with the foresight here to draft Jason Kelce's replacement in the second round, and have that plan in place. You want to talk about something that is absolutely bread and butter, Howie Roseman, like one of the more Howie Roseman moves you can think of would be planning for the successor of an offensive lineman ahead of time with an early round pick. This is paint by numbers, Howie, but it obviously worked out very well. And Cam Jurgens proved to be a quite suitable replacement for Jason Kelce as the Eagles turned the page.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's a good one. It's not on my list. I should have put it on the list. I was thinking about moves since 2022.
We had a call about the rules for this draft, and I said it didn't have to happen.
I know, but I was because like you can go back to hiring Howie Roseman if you can go back to the idea
was the differences between 2022 and 24, but the moves could predate.
Yeah, no, I know what you said. I put it.
Okay. You just didn't internalize it.
So I was talking about this on the all on the All NFL show yesterday, on the All City NFL show yesterday, and I was talking about the succession plans that he has in place. And I think when these are done, a lot of it is like we, the media, kind of portrays it as he gets to learn under Jason Kelce, or Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis gets to learn under Fletcher Cox. And certainly that's a big benefit too. But I think what the part of it that should not be overstated is that it just allows you from a planning perspective. It gives you such a better approach from a planning perspective when you don't need to go fill that need. You don't need to say, all right, who are the centers available in free agency? Who are the centers available in the draft? You get ahead of it. You have like the rainy day fund. Like, I've heard Howie say all the time, I've heard Howie say so many times, I say this about Nick, where I can like finish his stories. In a certain sense, I can finish Howie Roseman sentences sometimes. Like, don't make that a drop. Okay. Calm decisions.
About a drop. There's way worse things.
Yeah. Calm decisions and calm times. Calm decisions and calm times, right? And so when you have your replacement in the building, you're not forced to go make an emergency, pick a guy around too high or sign a guy to more money because you need to fix it. So I think that's the other benefit there is proper planning is so beneficial. And it goes to your point earlier about operating under multiple timelines.
Okay. Want to do one? We'll get to 12. So you do one more. Okay. You do 2 more picks. I'll do 1 more pick.
Yeah. So I'm going to go Cooper DeJean here because I'm going to use this as a vehicle for discussing something that I've noticed with Howie and that I think is obviously Cooper DeJean itself was a really good pick. And it's not a coincidence that the defense has been significantly better since he's entered the lineup. He entered after the bye week. It's been night and day since the bye week, and perceive that as a knock on Avonte Maddox. I think it's more of a credit to Cooper DeJean, the athleticism that he brings, the physicality that he brings, the size that he brings, the versatility. He's just a different player than Avonte Maddox. He's bigger, he's more athletic, he's younger, and you've seen the benefit there. And he's clearly, we have behind the scenes footage that shows this. Jeffrey Lurie said, like, the night before he went to sleep saying they have to go get Cooper DeJean. Cooper DeJean was standing out on their board. They were aggressive in doing it.
Well, and frankly, you wonder, we have talked about and written about how he sometimes doing Jeffrey's bidding is a little bit of an unfair way to say it, but like his job, like Jeffrey is the person who it's his job to impress. And so, if Jeffrey was enamored of Cooper DeJean, that's part of the calculation.
Yeah, good point. But I like the approach that I'm talking about here is, if you see the Commanders behind the scenes, the Eagles were like haggling over these late picks to include which one, and the Eagles are driving a hard bargain. And if you look at the trade chart, the Eagles technically lost that trade to the Commanders, but you get the player. But I think what stands out is when you see the way the Eagles navigated day 3 of the draft, and I would watch how the Eagles do this going forward, is you can always collect picks later, right? Like, to me, there's such a difference early in the draft between the player you have. If you're drafting in the teens, you're drafting if a top 50 pick, like, there's such a difference between getting those players you have in the top 50 or top 30, however you want to frame it. Then later on in the draft, when there's a lot more subjectivity on boards, and I think like the Eagles were able to trade back multiple times, still take 6 players this year, and get 3rd round pick, 4th round pick, 5th round pick in 2025. I think there's always trade back opportunities later. I think that if you have to give up that extra 6th or that extra 4th, a 4th's valuable. But my point is that you can trade back 10 spots to pick up a later pick later in the draft. If you can secure a guy that you have as a 1st-round talent in the 2nd round, go do it. And also, Howie's track record in 2nd rounds has been really impressive. When you look at Zach Ertz and Landon Dickerson and obviously Cooper DeJean. I had this the other day.
Vinny Curry.
Yeah. I mean, they've had a lot of success. Yeah, Dallas Goedert. They've had a lot of success in the 2nd round of the draft, and I would be aggressive trying to. That's why I didn't love as much like trading back for the Tyler Steen, Sidney Brown combo, and that might turn out well. I would rather move up in the 2nd round and lock in someone who is slipping rather than trade back. Cam Jurgens was the 2nd round pick too. Yeah.
I don't know that I totally agree with that, but I do think that this is also part of the conversation of what I was talking about with staying patient for Quinyon, set them up to be able to do this. And that was obviously the double dip that has worked out very well.
Sure.
All right, I'll give you my last pick because I know that we want to see Nick Sirianni in about 10 minutes. I think Nolan Smith is a more important player, no doubt about it. But that move was less out of the ordinary for me, or worth celebrating than I think Mekhi Becton has been really good this year. And it's not that like signing Mekhi Becton was such a coup. It's that it was a good example of always having a backup plan for Howie Roseman, because they wanted to draft an offensive lineman early and they didn't. And so the day after the draft was over, they had ready to go, we're going to sign Mekhi Becton, obviously, once upon a time first round caliber talent, and we're going to bring him into Stoutland University and see how it works. Maybe it'll be as a tackle, maybe it'll be as a guard. We talked about it. It was pretty clear that they didn't have full faith in Tyler Steen this offseason, and so all of a sudden you've got a plan B, and it worked out very well. He has been huge for the running game, no doubt about it. And whether or not he comes back, we'll see. Maybe he's a comp pick boon for them. But I think that was a good example of always having multiple plans of attack for addressing the things that they need to address.
Well said. Good point about Howie's strategy there. And look, last year, those lottery ticket signings didn't work as well. This year paid off in a big way. So you mentioned Nolan Smith. That's an obvious one, but I'll mention another one here that's on my list, just to get it in. Similar to your point about the wide receiver extensions, the offensive line extensions, getting ahead of Landon Dickerson, getting ahead of Jordan Mailata. Like, if Landon Dickerson was going to be a free agent this offseason, just imagine what he would get paid. And Jordan Mailata, he keeps getting better, and I think there's something to acting quickly, and the strength of the Eagles, it's the line of scrimmage, and to know that you have two Pro Bowl. Well, I guess Jordan's not a Pro Bowler, but a Pro Bowl guard and an All Pro caliber tackle locked up for as you move forward here. Good strategic move by Howie, doing it, and keeps both those guys happy.
All right, let's close it out with a couple super chats before we bounce on out of here. Zachary B. We've got Chill Bill, who says, does Die Hard come with a code for Zach's OnlyFans?
I don't know how to answer this. I hope you are fans of all of us here at allphly.com. Not only a fan of me, but we have a lot of we have make sure you check out Les Bowen has a nice column up right now. You can check out Les's piece, and I mentioned Fran's all of Fran's work. I had 2 stories yesterday. I have another story coming up later today or tomorrow morning, and that's not even to mention our Sixers coverage and our Flyers coverage and Jim Salisbury on the Phillies. So yeah, please be a diehard.
So you're not going to give away that password then?
I don't have a password.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chase Daniel Plainview says, where does Howie publicly whining about Brandon Brown and Ian Cunningham being hired before the draft rank? The front office hasn't been poached since.
Yeah, he did whine about that.
Man's been paying attention.
Yeah. That is a minion if I've ever heard one. He likes he's a sicko and a minion all at one.
It has nothing to do with me. That's a Howie thing.
True. By the way,
do you deny that happened?
No, he did. He did complain about it. I thought that was weak. So real quick, Kellen Moore had what sounded like a long interview last night with the New Orleans Saints.
I thought this was very funny, by the way, that like all of a sudden a bunch of like official things are tweeting at like 8:00 this morning, like the Saints completed their interview with Kellen Moore overnight, as if this was like, oh, they went home together on their date last night. Like, let's get this. The New Orleans Saints slept over at Kellen Moore's house last night.
Yeah, I mean, they made the point. They flew up here. They flew up here to do it in person and all that. Yeah. But as
Kellen Moore has bedded the New Orleans Saints.
This is not my line or joke. I think I saw this Mike Mulhern. Credit to Mike. Always enjoyed working with Mike at NBC Sports Philly. But there is like some symmetry here where the coordinator stays in the city where you have the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Right. Like after the game, Kellen stays in New Orleans to be announced as the Saints coach. Yeah, similar to Gannon in Arizona. So the only opening left, right? Well, actually, Colt's job was technically open at the time too.
What is this the only one left now?
Yeah, this is the only job left. Yeah.
Okay. We'll see if they continue to sleep around or not. By the way, I do think that it's like, we'll see. Maybe Kellen Moore gets that Saints job, but you would think that a little bit less turnover this time around for the Eagles, even front office wise, to CDP's point about losing Brandon Brown and Ian Cunningham. Michael Nittickman says underrated is how CJ Gardner-Johnson feels much less like a loose cannon this year, making big plays and bringing juice, but not necessarily all over the place. Washington game notwithstanding.
Yeah, good point. He's been that signing's worked out well. Had the chance for volatility, but it's worked out well.
Okay. Yes, we'll get to work on drawing a cartoon of Kellen Moore in bed smoking a cigarette next to a fleur-de-lis, and then get going.
Sure. Yeah.
Zach's nervous and anxious because the Nick Sirianni press conference starts in about 2 minutes. So we're going to end this bad boy. Make sure that you become a diehard. This is the time. 36 hours, $36 for the year. That time is running out. So if you care at all about the draft, this is a no-brainer. If you care at all about Zach Berman's well-being and you want him to get some sleep, this is a no-brainer. And also make sure that you are liking the videos, commenting on the videos, subscribing, thumbs up, all that good stuff, and go to the store at the store at allcity.com because we got great deals there too. Yeah. All kinds of stuff when the Eagles go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, make sure, like you said, the store for sure. We got good deals, good shirts, but make sure, like Bo said, you're liking and subscribing. I think there were 38 comments yesterday. Let's beat that today. I thought this was a really good show. Let's reward the show with some good comments.
Yeah, I mean, so far the commenters would say the best show all year was that one that you didn't like. So
true. Well, hopefully we can all agree that I like that. We like this one today.
And last thing, Zach, question from the chat: is Zach Mormon?
I am not Mormon. No, I don't know where that's coming from. But respect Mormons. Yeah, but no, I am not Mormon.
Respect Mormons. Yes. All right, let's get that put on a t-shirt on allcity.com. Respect Mormons. Quote Zach Berman. Thank you very much. For all of us here at PHLY, we thank you for watching and listening. We're back tomorrow, 2:00, as the Super Bowl approaches. For all of us, we thank you for watching and listening. We'll talk to you later. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.